Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. Thanks for joining us for the analytics and data session today. We're going to let's go ahead and put up the first slide, Roger.
Sorry, just getting it going.
Yeah, I'm Tim Vlamis. I'm going to be hosting today, and so any complaints or comments, tomatoes and whatnot should be directed my attention, not anywhere else. So I'm here to
I appreciate that, Jim.
oh yeah, of course. But we're going to be talking about advancements, some very exciting new capabilities in Essbase and how it integrates with ADW. And so Roger's going to be taking us through that. And then we do have a special guest from Oracle Product Management joining us, as well as Ashish Jain. So if we have other issues that come up or suggestions or comments or whatnot, we have someone from Oracle that can also stand on stage and have things hurled at them. So
yeah, when I'm lacking in knowledge, Ashish will certainly be able to supply the backup.
yeah.
So thanks for being on today as well, Ashish.
Yes.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, we don't actually have an Essbase. Basically, we'll before the end of the session, we'll put up an Essbase debug link instead of the normal analytics ones, Tim.
Yes, of course.
So, are you seeing the screen change?
We are not seeing anything.
We're not seeing your screen. You're not sharing right now, Andrew.
Oh, I apologize. Okay,
Yeah.
so here I am trogging along thinking, you
While you guys are waiting, a lot of people are responding. We have people from as far as Paris and England,
Yeah, great.
Idaho, Toronto, India.
Wonderful. No, we appreciate everybody coming and being here. So
The Netherlands.
okay, I apologize for doing that. I thought I was already sharing, but let's do it again. So I wondered why you were so quiet. It's unusual.
yeah.
Still doesn't
All
look
right.
like...
We are seeing your editor for PowerPoint, not the presentation. We're seeing the beautiful coastline. Yeah.
Coming up. How's that?
There
we are.
That
Okay.
sounds great.
So let's move.
You never actually saw the wonderful picture of me. Yeah, that was the most important slide to start with.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
So Roger, we're really pleased to have you join AnDOUC today for our TechCast. I want everyone to know who's attending that this is one in a series that are given periodically. There are recordings for past TechCasts, and they span the range of Oracle Analytics and what we would call analytic processing in the database. So we're kind of a united analytics community here, spatial and graph, Oracle Analytics, and database, and Roger's going to be talking about multidimensional structures and whatnot. So let's move forward. Yeah. If you guys have topics you want to present on, let us know. Please go to AnDOUC.org. We do have some fun merchandise also that you can buy there. Next slide. And then we have an active user group where we help each other, chat with each other, ask questions and whatnot. The Slack channel is pretty good, so a lot of people hang out there. And then obviously we're engaged in other parts of social media, so we'd love to connect with everyone in any one of these streams. And I think with that, Roger, if we'll
indeed
turn it over to you, and thank you very much for agreeing to share your wisdom with us today.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks for the introduction. So I am an associate director with Brovanture, and you can see this little picture of the beach is actually about 15 minutes from my home. So I live in a slice of paradise, and you'll see that actually, as well as being a full service partner for Oracle, doing ERP, EPM, and analytics, we are all over the globe and growing by the day. So what am I talking about today? I'm going to take a tour around. There's some things that I just need to sort of state up front. We are still working through some of the stuff. So things like the benchmarking, the hybrid BSO versus federated, I'm not going to be able to give any detail on that today, except to talk in generalities about it. I am intending, this is a full session of this will be done at Kscope, and I expect to have lots of benchmarking there. But what I will do is talk around the basics. We're going to talk about install options. We're going to talk about connecting the plumbing. How do we connect up so that we can actually expose ADW? I'm going to talk a little bit about the transforming from hybrid BSO to ADW federated partition. SmartView, if we have time. At the moment, I'm actually running some processes, but I think we may have to wait for Kscope to do that as well. And then we'll talk about some pros and cons and go to questions. That reminds me, if you do have a question, please will you put it into the Q&A area and not into chat. If Ashish can answer it on the fly in the background, he will. Otherwise, we'll do questions at the end. So with that, what is federated partitioning? So first it was released in 21.2, but with limitations. And developments continued now to the point where this release, which is 21.5, it's possible to run BSO calc scripts in a federated partition cube, maintain dimensions, load data, all using normal Essbase rules, and they in turn automatically update the ADW schema. I will talk a little bit more about that because there's some sort of gotchas that you need to consider when creating your fact table in ADW. And in the example I'm showing you today, I'm talking about a cube that was hybrid BSO, and I've now basically extracted all the base data from it and whacked that into a fact table in ADW, and I'm busy exposing that to the normal Essbase functionality. So 21.5.2 had limited capabilities from a calc execution perspective. The 21.6 release, which is coming next, is going to be an improvement on that. But it's an area basically what Oracle is looking to do, and obviously, Ashish, feel free to correct me at any stage, but basically what Oracle is looking to do is to be able to have all of the current Essbase functionality operate in a partitioned world with autonomous data warehouse. So the idea of people who have got Essbase skills being able to leverage a capability against an ADW relational fact source is incredible, because you're still going to write your calculation, for instance, in BSO in the normal Essbase calc script language, and it basically translates that into SQL and runs it against the ADW. So I'll show you a little bit of that when we get to it. So install options. For this option, it has to be marketplace, and you have to use autonomous data warehouse. You can't use transactional processing database or third-party databases. I think it's a lot of what happens I will show you some of the tables in the background as well. But ADW, actually, you create your fact table, and then ADW, knowing Essbase and how Essbase work, spawns a whole lot of tables which hold metadata and calculation views. So we'll talk about pricing, Essbase marketplace pricing, and other considerations. What I show you, please note, it's to give you a general idea. It does come with a health warning, and that I've just put it together very quickly, and it's for a very base sort of provision of an instance. And these sorts of configurations will need to be part of a considered approach when you get to installing your own, and really one of the things that comes up, and I'll take you and show you the page in a minute. You have this concept of eCPU versus OCPU. OCPU we've known for a while, and that's a physical core with hyperthreading enabled, whereas eCPU's an abstracted measure of compute resources. So I've not had a lot of experience with eCPU. I understand that the cost basis is not that different. Interestingly, when considering this model, I didn't get an option to use eCPUs for Essbase, only for ADW. So some of the things that came up when I was looking through this is there's lots of different flavors of ADW that you can get. The option I am running at the moment, very kindly installed by the infrastructure bunch at our Brovanture office, is the base one. So serverless dedicated Exadata infrastructure. I mean, you can go to town and have your own Exadata cloud infrastructure quarter rack, which is $14.52 an hour. When you consider it's a quarter rack, I guess that's not a high price, but I guess that would be a bit eye-watering if that's a per processor per hour type price. So this is an example. Let me just go and show you the. Oh, I don't think I have it up at the moment. If I've got the link on here, maybe I won't waste too much time on it. But no, it's closed down. I'm not going to go and waste time on it now. But really, if you go to this, there's a pricing worksheet which allows you to go and make your selections. And I did mine around the 744 hours per month. And then you can select various options from the number of eCPUs to the amount of storage you're going to use. And I think the model I'm using right now is has got 2 terabytes of storage. But effectively, what you need is you need to have, for Essbase, you've got to have the actual marketplace item, which is 131 per processor per hour, which ends up being about 1950. You need a compute instance, you need block volumes, and sorry, let me just go back. I'm going too fast here. So you oh dear. That's what I want. So by the time you get everything that's needed to run the Essbase instance on, you're looking at around $2,000, just over $2,000 a month for 2 processors. And notice, as I said before, it does come with a health warning. If you get a contract in place, an annual contract in place, rather than just using pay-as-you-go, you will save a fairly substantial amount on this price. And also, depending on the shape you choose, you might choose a bit more or a bit less. the neat thing is that you can change it at any stage. You can actually increase it, for instance, for a month-end process, and you could decrease it during the month. The other thing is that I've got it running for 24 hours a day. You can easily, especially if you've got places around the world that aren't using it, even if you get 5 or 6 hours in a 24-hour slot, that's a big saving on hours. So those things should be considered. But you're looking, by the time you've got 2 eCPUs on ADW and 2 OCPUs on Essbase, you're looking at about 2.5 grand, maybe a bit more. So, right, what is the install process? And I'm not going to go through in detail. As I said, this was done by Guillaume Slee, who's a director at Brovanture. But I went through the bases with him, and you've got to first create yourself an Essbase compartment. And basically in that compartment, you put everything to do with it, whether it's the Essbase instance, the ADW instance, and it's just easier if it's all together. You create your dynamic group, create policies, which effectively just allows your user to manage the autonomous environment itself. Set up your cloud identity access, create a confidential identity application, and then vault secrets and encrypt values. The secrets obviously become important when you start to use tools like I use fairly often with this, and I'll show you that I use WinSCP and yeah, a couple of other tools. I'll show you what I use. Obviously, it has to be a marketplace deployment. And then post-deployment is just about really going through and checking that everything works, that the plumbing works, that you can connect to everything, and then testing with data and making sure that you get the right answers. Nothing new about that. So once we've got our Essbase, and I'll show you this. I'll move to this in a minute. I'm not going to waste a long time. Connecting the plumbing, I'm going to show you this live as well. But effectively, you create a data source, and then within the application, you're going to go and create a partition against that data source. So one of the things I did, though, and this is just a sort of a hot tip for anybody who is looking at converting an existing block storage Essbase cube to an ADW partitioned cube, then this bit of scripting is incredibly useful. It is in documentation. I found it there, and if anybody is familiar with Essbase, you will know that it sometimes takes an age to get data out in a format that is suitable for loading into other things. You can do a data dump, in the proprietary format in a matter of minutes usually, but this piece of code, I know it's not particularly, its remit is not just for partitions, but it was remarkable. This took a massive database and data set and spat out files for me in literally 2 minutes, which I was then able to use to ingest into ADW. So this is the partition which is created against that data source that you saw just now, and that's at database level in Essbase. This is just a little bit more. I'm going to take you through these screens in a minute, so I'm not going to waste time, but they are in the deck, which will be published for you as well. And then just a shout out to this. While I was doing this exercise, and I have been doing this exercise, I've become very enamored with the data load UI that's attached to ADW now. It's absolutely phenomenal. I found it really easy to use. I like the fact that it gives me lots of information. Here you can see the files I loaded, and I loaded 234 million rows. So a big chunk of data into it, and it gives you good feedback. It's easy. I'm not overly familiar with ADW. I can find myself my way around a query or two, but this makes, if you like, makes it a lot more non-technical. Although I believe, you know, and as I'll show you just now, I'll give you a little tour of this. You can get to a lot of information with just mouse clicks. Okay. So really, in terms of using your federated partition, oops, look at the spelling. You use Essbase as normal, basically. There are some calculation script functions that are not supported. There's a list of those in the documentation. What you, yeah, you can check that, but pretty much it's also very good at giving you warnings. It'll say, when you try and run something, it'll say this function is not supported. So it's been quite intelligent. And so let's go and have a peep at the tool itself. Can everybody still see my screen? If someone on the panel can just confirm.
Yeah, we see it. We're seeing the Essbase ADW.
Okay,
Yep.
Great. So I'm going to start here and just give you a quick look at this. So this is the ADW instance that underpins Essbase. This is where I've got my fact table loaded to. And what I'm going to do is up here in database actions, you'll see a number of different things. You can go to SQL, which gives you something that looks very like SQL Developer. There's a REST Studio, database users. Data load is what I'm going to look at. And here's lots of very straightforward, easy to use browsers. You drag and drop your file here and do whatever mapping and configuration. You can either tell it to create a table or update an existing table. So it's pretty good. If I show you the catalog, this is something I wanted to just give you a look at. At the moment, I'm in as, let me just go in as sample. So my user on ADW is sample, and this is where the schema is. So really what I want to show you is that I created one fact table. I'm just looking for it, actually. Where is my ediv table? Let me just do ediv. Maybe it's further down.
So it shows the latest tables,
Yeah.
and the metadata tables that we create is all ediv, has ediv in it. So
Yeah, they have.
that's the,
I was just looking for the original fact, but anyway, I'm not going to waste too much time. But what I wanted to say specifically is that you create one fact table, and from that, as I said earlier in the presentation, the autonomous data warehouse goes and spawns all of the various metadata tables and aggregation tables that it needs, so that as you run your calculation, it's creating tables and updating the fact table as it goes. I'm just not sure why I can't see.
Yeah,
either.
Roger, we're looking at the first 1 to 25 of 29 entries. So if you,
Oh, that's why. Okay, page. We are 50. Thank you, guys. You can tell I'm not very familiar with this. All right, so there's my ediv table. That's the only table that I created. So, and here it gives you a sample of the data. It's actually really nice and fast. I found it a very easy tool to use. The other things that you can do is, if you go back to this, if you go to Performance Hub, and you can actually go in here, you can see how things are going. If I go to SQL monitoring, I've got SQL queries on the go at the moment, and these are all is currently I'm running an aggregation, which is why I can't show you Smart View at the moment. But effectively, you can go into the SQL and you can see the query and its progress. And at any stage, I can go and see the SQL text. So I didn't know which one I checked, but it just basically is giving me whatever text has been passed for the query that it's running. So it's one way you can actually go and see how ADW has interpreted your block storage calculation. I think for now, I'm going to take you now and show you some of the Essbase things. So here, this interface, all I can tell you is that there are some big changes to the UI coming. I know it's joining basically the Redwood stable of UIs in the future. I think with the release 26, Ashish can confirm or deny that. But you will see some changes coming with that. And the cube that I've created is ediv ADW. But before I go to the cube, let me go and show you the actual data source. So if we have a look at the data source, I'll just open one of these. Can everybody still see it?
Yeah, we see your screen.
Okay, thank you. So I'm just slightly anxious in that before this presentation, everything just went black on me. So it was perfect timing, actually. I think I did it with 3 minutes to spare. So really what you've got to connect basically to the ADW. So you select the actual, make sure autonomous is selected. You can name it anything you like. You make sure you've got a downloaded wallet file, a secure wallet file, so you can connect to your instance. And then the service name, you'll see it only gives you certain options. And in this, in a release, you ideally want to choose medium. And this is just the credentials of the sample user on ADW. And I've done nothing to amend anything on the advanced options in terms of maximum pool size and minimum pool size. So that is the first step, and you do that with the sources, and that's at server level. So any of these applications could leverage this connection. So then after that, I'm going to go to the application itself. So once we've got this open, we're going to go and inspect it. And here is where you go and create the partition. So, and what it does is when you create the partition, it'll, especially if it was previously a block storage cube, it'll kill everything and then reseed it from scratch, because it's now connecting directly to the ADW table. But just so you can see how this looks, this was what I was showing you screenshots of. You connect to it. And here I want to just talk a little bit about the pivot dimension. You'll notice the pivot dimension here. And you may wonder, well, why did you choose period? So the pivot dimension is the one dimension that you can't tamper with once you created the fact table. It is something that you need to think about, and you need to choose really a dimension that doesn't change or doesn't get new members regularly, because you don't want to change that. In every other dimension, apart from the pivot dimension, you can run and update it, add members, do anything you like. And when you run, for instance, a load rule to build new dimension members into one of your dimensions, that automatically adds members to the fact table. and creates the members as you go. So instead of it just being in the proprietary cube, which you would have had before, it's now creating those members in the fact table. But as I said, the only thing you can't do that with, that would be, you could do it, you would just have to completely drop your fact table and recreate it, and then recreate the partition. One thing that you should know, so at the top here, I didn't get it at first because I kept on getting an error. There is a dimension column. These two tabs, this is tabs. It just wasn't obvious to me. And I had to map. View is obviously some sort of a protected name. So in ADW, it called it view_RW. So it's the only one I had to map. Otherwise, the rest, it understood it perfectly. But assuming that you've got everything right, you can then validate it. I shouldn't have done that, should I? Here it goes. And validated with warnings. I'm not going to go into those now. But effectively, that partition is now in place. And I can then carry on and run my cube exactly as I would normally. I'm just going to show you the outline briefly, because I'll go to it in a minute, actually. Let me just show you, I'm in the application tier, aren't I? If I go to the outline first, just to give you a sense, this is a big old beefy cube. And so we've got effectively 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 dimensions. And as you saw, the base data was 234 million rows. Obviously, it's a pretty standard cube. This is an operational financial cube, and it is used to combine a number of different versions of the actuals for this company. And it's also used to combine forecast plans and AOPs, and also allows them to update and allocate things, running allocation calcs for management books and regional, local, corporate analysis. So it is a fairly substantial cube. If I now go back to here, let's just go and show you the calc script that you can see here. So this is the script that I've been running and testing. I'm gradually sort of adding more to it. And effectively, you don't have to worry about knowing anything to do with ADW. If you're an Essbase person, once you've got the partition created, you should be able to just get on. Now, there are some performance things that you need to consider. And there are some configuration settings that configurations are at the application tier level. It's worth knowing that these are the sorts of things you want to do. Obviously, these are fairly standard, you know them, but these federated, average calc, hybrid, all of these were ones that were recommended to me by the Oracle Product Development Bunch, so that I could add those and get better performance. So it's certainly important to do that. And it is important, there's certain data types. When you load your data into your fact table, we found that Nvarchar 2 and 1024 was the option that you should select. Now, I'm not sure if that's the case for everything. Oracle is doing some analysis at the moment and we'll be making recommendations on sizing for your for basically the footprint you need for both your Essbase instances and your ADW instance. They will also be giving guidance on things like this, the configuration that needs to happen, and also how to set up ADW and make sure that it's suitable. So there is a bit of, if you like, intervention with ADW that you can apply, but once you've got it set up, it's pretty, it really is autonomous. Off it goes and gets it done. So I think I've given you a pretty good tour of that. And let's just see. I think that's most of what I was going to share today. Unfortunately, we have got some things that are only going to be ready for Kscope, and so I'll use that as a teaser and ask for you to join us for a session there. So I'm just going to see what's here, what it remembers.
So Roger, I have a few questions when you're wrapped this part up, but please proceed.
Yeah, so let's just see. I'm just going to log in here quickly. Nobody look at my password. Oh, I've got my caps all wrong, haven't I? But anyway.
I'd also encourage anyone who's watching, if you have questions for Roger or for Ashish, please put them in the Q&A window, and be happy to share them.
Okay, so I haven't yet got data to show you here, but really just to let you know that, let me just take an earlier year. Pretty sure I might have some data there. Not yet. Oh, there we are. So if I just do a, let's get to this, keep only. Yeah, so but for all intents and purposes, this now behaves exactly like a normal Essbase cube. So let's just keep ICP none. I don't think it like, oh, there we are. So, and you carry on browsing the data as you want. Obviously, I've got all my periods and views, and everything works exactly the same. So, segment reporting. I'm just browsing anyway, just to show you. So, keep going down, and so on. You can see going to the bottom level. We're starting to get data through. So everything behaves pretty much identically to the user would not know what data source they're connecting to, and all of the calculation and everything has worked based on a block storage calculation running against ADW. The other thing that it will allow, I don't want to do it on this cube right now, but it'll allow you to input data and you know, do all of that sort of thing as you would normally with an Essbase cube. So again, I would still advise that that's done at a level 0. But otherwise, that's it. I think that's broadly what I wanted to show you. And yeah, any questions that have come
we
up?
have a couple questions regarding ASO cubes. I know you were talking about a hybrid, but and you know, the experience of exporting out of ASO, and you know what the plan is for, kind of using ASO cubes as partitions.
So ASO is exactly the only reason I showed BSO is because the cube that I've been using is a massive BSO cube. The ASO, it doesn't actually matter, because what you're doing is you're getting rid of any localized proprietary Essbase storage, and you're replacing it with a connection directly to the ADW partition. I want to hasten to add, I've just talked about the fact that I converted an Essbase cube to, instead of working on its proprietary database, I've converted it to work with an ADW fact table. You can start with a fact table that you create and then create an Essbase cube off that fact table. You would obviously need to build out your dimensions, but as you build it out, Essbase will continue to add members to that fact table, assuming obviously that you've chosen the correct pivot dimension to use. So whether it's Essbase ASO, BSO, or BSO hybrid, we don't care, because it's effectively going to run against that fact table.
So there was also a question about, is Essbase using analytic views? That new feature in the Oracle database, and Ashish did confirm that they're leveraging those constructs. So that,
Yeah.
I find that interesting, kind of bringing the worlds of OLAP together.
If I can see that in here, these are, in fact, somewhere, maybe you can help me, Ashish, but somewhere it says what the thing is, but most of these are using analytic views. I think all of these.
These are tables. You see the entity type filter on the top next to sample. I think we do show analytic views. So we do create analytic views in the background.
Yeah, there we are. Thank you. So yeah, they are in use. Good. And I think for me, there's a real use case going forward where if we're able to supplement, obviously Essbase is connected to the fact table, and all of the logic that happens around that is run by ADW itself. But as long as I'm interested in finding ways that I can supplement that fact table with machine learning and AI. So if I've got some sort of an integration that I can run to update facts in my fact table with that kind of data, I think it opens up a whole new level of use case for using ADW with Essbase. Because obviously it'd be far, and Tim, you'd know better than I, how to leverage that. The other thing that you can do already, you could obviously put OAC directly over the top of the fact table and leverage that. What I'm hoping is that in the future, there's maybe there's a possibility that some sort of a schema will be propagated by the Autonomous Data Warehouse specifically for OAC to leverage, the dimensions and things from Essbase. I know at the moment you can actually effectively import an Essbase cube and create an RDP with that. But maybe there'll be something more press button in the future. Hint, hint, Ashish.
The other thing that was
Sure.
rolling through my head is that, let's say somebody has a number of Essbase cubes on-prem and they're undergoing a modernization effort and they want to go to cloud, and they find this capability very intriguing. Do you have any advice in terms of where to start, or what kind of cube might be a best first effort or something like that?
I think this kind of large scale cube is always going to be interesting to do. Basically, what we're doing when we have ADW and the ADW fact table is that we don't have any latency between updating. So you can, if I update any fact in that fact table, it's immediately exposed to the Essbase interface. So anything that is, we've all, in the Essbase world, we've always talked about near real time.
Hmm.
We've never talked about real time. And in fact, many years ago, they tried to do XOLAP, which was, if you like, I guess probably a stillborn child version of this, in that it wasn't functional enough. But we didn't have the brute that ADW is to help us in those days, or all the autonomous features that this brings to the party. So I think if you choose like a sales cube or something that needs to be refreshed continuously, or something that's continuously collecting data and collating data, where we don't have to do any ETL or ELT, as some people call it nowadays, with everything happening on the server. But basically everything, all the integration work, all the refreshing of data is directly on the source. So there's no latency. And I think that's anything that requires that kind of a usage, I think this is going to be prime time for.
Yeah, very interesting. There's also a question regarding e-business suite, EBS, and general ledger balances. And, would it be, is that a good use case?
Yeah, it's, I mean,
for
that's
using, Essbase, SCI, should we be looking at that, or if anybody has done it on the call? I don't know if you have, Roger. I thought you might have some comments.
not this, the cube that I've been showing you.
Yep.
Is a financial GL cube. So it is definitely a use case for it. What I would say is typically a finance cube like this is something that needs to set point in time. So there's people close the books at the end of the day. There's a backup routine that runs, and then a refresh of the data, because financial analysts need to know what the data was at a point in time. Whereas in a sales case or information gathering, they want to know what it is up to the minute. And it's not that it's a bad thing to have it. I mean, there's no reason why you couldn't have financial data like that, which is why I've chosen to do it. But as long as you've got a point in time type update, even if it's the periods in your cube that define that for you, so that the finance can use that without the numbers changing on them because someone's added a record, you've just got to be a bit careful with that.
Yeah, or conceivably doing trial balances and
yes,
looking for deltas and whatnot could be interesting.
I mean, for me, Essbase is something, even without partitioning, Essbase has always been something that is it's basically where I can bring all the data together in one place. It's something that's very scalable. It's very intuitive to use with SmartView. Finance people love it, but it also protects the integrity of the data, because the fact that they can interrogate an Essbase cube with SmartView, pull back the data, and not be calculating that with Excel formulas and making a mess, is a vital sort of part of the equation. And I think that's another use case. We talk about SmartView, being able, if I've got fact data in tables in an ADW instance, and I actually want to expose it to my financial people with SmartView, this is a fantastic way to achieve that.
Absolutely.
Spin them up a cube on top of that fact table, and Bob's your auntie. They're off doing what they know how to do in an Excel spreadsheet with SmartView.
Yeah, well, that's the power of having an established hierarchy, right? Whereas sometimes we don't always have it so clear in a warehouse, but in any case, no, this is great. I'm looking to see if there are any other interesting questions here, and thanks to everyone for participating. Are we going to share some links, Carrie, before we wrap up?
Essbase Database Administration Guide. Did we find that?
Yes. There is Database Administrator's Guide. There is Getting Started with Federated Partitions, and there's a YouTube playlist.
If we can put those in chat if we haven't already.
Yep, they just went into the chat.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. So, and obviously I'm around for questions. Ashish obviously can answer any questions. Yeah, as I say, think of this as a seed sort of session for Kscope. I know I will be presenting at Kscope, and Ashish will also be presenting, and Tim German, my friend and previous colleague, he will also be presenting. All of us from a very slightly different perspective. But there will be at least 3 decent sessions, and by that time I'm expecting to have some good benchmarking to show you some empirical data. But yeah, thank you for having me today.
Yeah, Roger, I can't thank you enough for joining, and Ashish, everyone, thanks for the excellent participation. I too will be at Kscope and look forward to seeing everyone there and learning more about this, Roger, from you, and it's very, very exciting time, so appreciate it.
Superb. Thank you. Thanks very much.
So I think with that, we will go ahead and hang out for a few minutes and then close the call, but we really appreciate everybody joining today.
Yeah, superb. I'm going to pause the share.
Any other last questions?
Okay.
All right, well, thanks everyone.
Okay.